Where is it? There you go. Turned off the metronome, checking the levels right now. I didn't know when to start or how to start, so I decided just to turn it on, and I'm starting right now. What am I starting? The annual episode of my podcast. So how's the level? You know what? This is going to be good enough. I'm seeing it's around. It's what's it maxing out at? Negative 25. Maybe. Let me. I don't know if I should get closer. I'm trying to get comfortable and not think so much. Yeah. Try not to think. Try not to think. Like let's not think about a purple elephant, shall we? So yeah, here it is. It's the day after Thanksgiving, and I have decided that today is the day. And as I kind of sit on pins and needles waiting for Logic Pro to overload, I get this annoying problem that happens, and I Google all over the place trying to find out secrets. Tips and tricks. There are a lot of opinions out there. About everything, obviously. I'm moving my table, my little table. I'm trying. What am I saying? I'm trying to get comfortable. Trying not to think so much. There's a number of goals here. Mainly, I'm just recording an episode of this, continuing this silly tradition. And why must I continue to belittle it by calling it silly, right? I'm going to open a note section here in case there's thoughts that I want to do. But here's the deal. I don't know. Maybe I'll make some bullet points of stuff just so I don't forget. But then again, I don't do that in conversations, do I? And that's one of my goals here. Very few goals. One of the goals is just to do what I'm doing right now, is to turn it on, start talking. And to do, like in the spirit of when I first started this thing, when I was actually doing regular episodes, like weekly. I could look back, but I'm not going to go on the internet right now. I recall, I think I was doing it weekly for a while. I might have even done multiple ones a week for a while. That became irregular, monthly, every few months, you know. And then eventually it just became this annual thing to amuse myself. Well, you know what? I am going to pause. One of my goals was going to be I'm not going to pause, but you know what? I need to pause because I got a phlegm issue. TMI. All right, so I'm back. Had to tell you I'm back because I didn't leave it running the whole time. I could have, I guess, for the few minutes. I didn't time exactly how long I was away. What was I saying? Okay, very few rules. I was going to say there are no rules, but I don't know. There are some, I guess. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to probably talk for an hour. Will I allow myself to turn off the recording again? Yeah, I guess. Why not? I just did. So if I have a need to get away for some reason, or maybe Jordan wakes up or comes in or something. I was even going to wait until I made sure that Jordan was sleeping, but at this point I'm going, no, I don't care. So what if I get interrupted? Doesn't matter. Because that's another goal. Another goal is just to, I think I started to say this, get back to the spirit of this thing, because when I first started it, and in fact what I still have on the website is, you know, I've got nothing to say, but it's okay. And so it was that this is a podcast about whatever happens to be coming out of my mouth when I turn the recorder on. Something to that effect, right? I'm looking out the window. It's nice. The studio, a lot of times I have these black curtains, and most of the time I have them closed, especially in the summertime because I don't want it to get hot in here or have the air conditioner work overtime if it doesn't have to. But I don't know, for the last few weeks, off and on, I've had the curtains open. I've got them partially open now because the sun was shining on the external hard disks, and I didn't want that happening. But here's the main thing right now. The main point is I'm looking out the window, and I see the pine trees, and it's nice. It's just nice. There's cars driving by, too, so it's not a totally rural thing. But that's one of the things I like about this area here in Temecula is it's that mixture of suburban and rural like that. And also that before I had this house, and for years, I just remember growing up, when I was a kid, at some point, I don't know if it was when I was a kid or just later on in life, I always had this idea, always, at some point, God, sometimes I try to be so accurate with my maybes and kindas and perhaps instead of, because always is a trigger word, right? How often is always accurate? Rarely. But the trees, I had this idea for a long time before I moved into this house that I wanted to be in a house that was surrounded by trees. So I'm not surrounded by trees, but I do have pine trees over the back wall, the brick wall. So I don't have to take care of the trees. They're not my trees, but who really owns the trees anyway, right? Like somebody, I guess, because it is on property. It is on the common property. The point being is, so it kind of fulfilled a dream. When Jordan and I went looking to the handful of houses that I had when I'd narrowed down the search back in 2018. So we've been here for a little over 4 years. Moved in August of 2018. It is now November 2022. But when we first, it wasn't like a criteria. I don't remember having it as a criteria that there would be trees, but maybe subconsciously when I saw this place that put it higher on the list. I don't know. I don't really think it occurred to me that, oh yeah, I'd wanted to have a house with trees until after, we made the decision to buy this place. Kind of funny though, that for all those years I had thought, hey, wouldn't it be nice to have a house with trees? And then at some point I just kind of gave up on the idea and then didn't really consider it, but it happened anyway. So yeah, it's nice. It's just, sometimes just to remind myself that there's a world out there, because I don't go out much. I mean, even pre-pandemic, I didn't go out much. More so, though, in the last couple of years before the pandemic hit, because I was doing stand-up, in which case I'd go out once or twice a week, driving way too far for 3 minutes of stage time if I was lucky. Sometimes I'd put my name in a fucking bucket and not get stage time. And I'm sure I've talked about that on other podcast episodes. But who cares? Conscious of my breathing. That's a funny thing too, man. I don't like when I'm just talking to Jordan or talking to anybody, like in a meeting or whatever. I don't get conscious of my breathing, but this happens. It's another bad habit. When I think about like doing voiceover, sometimes when I'm either practicing doing voiceover or I've got an audition for something, and then I'll become right now too. If you hear my voice going in and out away from the mic, I'm not worried about being too professional right now. I'm trying to be as relaxed and natural as possible. Got my table set up so I can take a sip of something. There we go. In fact, I set so I took a sip. Another thing become conscious of is the lip smacking and the other mouth noises. And, I'm not alone. I've watched a lot of videos where there's voiceover people talking about how to minimize that stuff. Like right now. Do it after you take a drink, suck on the water or suck on your tongue. Voiceover. Oh, okay. Before I talk about that. Well, no, I will talk about that. I was looking at my journal. This is like from over 20 years ago, right? I think it was 2001. I'm talking about getting into voiceover. And this is before I even started seriously pursuing acting, because it wasn't until about 2006 that I started taking acting classes and going out on auditions. And in 2006, I think either 2006 or 2007, when I first started really like seriously thinking I was going to get back to something in the entertainment industry, I took 20-something, I have it written down somewhere, I think it was like 26 trips from San Diego to Los Angeles, back and forth for auditions, right? And I did get a couple of gigs. I got a commercial, or at least one. I got this commercial gig, Charter Communications commercial, where I was the guy, man. I was the talking head. I was the principal guy in 2 commercials for Charter Communications. It was a big deal to me. And it was really a big deal, too, because I thought, oh, this is no longer a pipe dream. Right? Because before that happened, I thought, oh, I could just be kidding myself. What makes me think I could actually be a working actor? And so even though now it's 16 years since then, and I'm not a working actor, it's like, but I've done gigs. So it's like, I can do it. The difference between me and a working actor is I don't work. Okay, there's an obvious statement. I was a little distracted. I think I hear the heater coming on, but you know what? It's okay. Sometimes when I'm doing things more professionally or professionally at all, because this isn't professional, I'm just doing a podcast episode, I will turn off the air conditioner. I will turn off the HVAC so it doesn't make some kind of noise in the background, but this is okay. I'm going for the natural thing, right? I'm going to sip some coffee, which, by the way, for anybody out there who's wanting to be a voiceover artist and doesn't know better, coffee is not really good for your voice. For either if you're talking or singing. But here, I'll prove. Oh, see, right there. As soon as I put it, it's like it right away affects your vocal cords. But I'll prove that I don't care. If I didn't care, would I be doing this? Would I be talking at all? What do I care about? What I care about is just doing something. I've been doing creative things. It's today is day 8 of 10 of my Thanksgiving vacation. I'm hesitating on using the staycation, but I just did. I just said it. But it is. I'm just staying home. I'm not going anywhere. It's still a vacation. Taking time off. I'm not working. And not thinking about work too much. It popped in my head occasionally here and there, but I just let it drift away. Not a big deal. I don't hate my job, so that's cool. A couple of years ago, I was pissed off at my customer/boss, but now, funny enough, I'm working for the same guy. I had gone to working 50% time with him for a while there. Found another programming job where I could work 50-50, and that made it a little better. You know what? At some point, I had to take ownership for the reason. Part of the reason I was getting pissed off with him was my ego, because he was kind of treating me like a noob. I've got like 40 years of software engineering, and he was holding my hand and telling me to do stuff and how to do stuff as opposed to just telling me what to do, and it was pissing me off. So I take ownership of that, but I also think he was being a little too micromanagey. But somehow, somewhere, here we are 2 years later and got a good working relationship with the guy. Should I use his name? Yeah, why not? Not his whole name, but his name's Sean. So if you're listening back to this and you or me, remember Sean? Probably not, because, I've had a lot of bosses come and go. Bosses, customers, whatever the word is. So I was trying to think of where I was going, but that's another rule, is I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. And when I first started this, in fact, here's a thing. One of the rules of this, or at least loose rules, but I haven't always followed it. The rule being that I would just say, hey, this is just whatever happens to be coming out of my face hole when I turn on the recorder, right? That was the mission statement that I already mentioned earlier that appears on my website. But then there have been times when I've done this, when I was doing this more regularly, or I think even for my annual, maybe a couple of my annual podcasts, where I would jot some notes. And that's fine. That's what I felt like doing. So I jotted some notes. I had some bullet points. But this time I went back to saying, you know what, let me just talk and really get back to, hey, it is really what happens to be coming out of my face hole when the recorder's turned on, right? So earlier today, a few hours ago, what time is it now? It's 12:45 p.m. So I don't know, sometime this morning when I decided, hey, I think today's the day. I was almost thinking about doing it yesterday, but then on Thanksgiving, I thought, you know what? I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do any music or anything creative or whatever. But then I did end up recording a video because it was a windy day, and that caught my ear, actually. Initially, I thought, I heard the wind outside. And I knew there was a high wind warning. And then I looked outside and I saw the trees blowing, and I just grabbed my camera, my iPhone, and went outside and recorded a bunch of shots. And next thing I know, I'm firing up Final Cut Pro and I'm editing a video. Turned out to be like 2 minutes and 50 seconds, no music. I was going to put some music underneath it. Everyone knows it's windy. Yeah, just call me Joe on the Nose Palin. Because I did that. I'm Captain Obvious. And I'm like Mr. On the Nose. I had done a video earlier in the week. I think it was still during the Thanksgiving break. And what was it? It was bump. I'm trying to think because I talked a little bit and then I went bump and I started the video. And okay, it's not coming to me right now, but the point is, it was just like so fucking on the nose. It was it's bugging me that I can't think of it, and I don't want to look it up. But why not? Why not look it up? I got the power. I can do that. I keep being afraid that if I even touch the computer, that overload thing is going to happen. But you know, if it does, if it crashes in the middle, I'll just start it up again. And I'll mention that it happened. Why not? Right? I'm not going to try to disguise it. So what was I saying? On the nose. I keep wishing it would come back to me, but I'm not remembering. Oh, yeah. It never rains in Southern California. So there you go. So a few weeks ago, it had rained, and I recorded some video of it raining. And then when I got around to doing the video, a couple weeks later, it was... in fact, 3 days ago. So it was during the break. When I got around to doing the video, I put the music underneath. It never rains in California. That song, right? So how on the nose can you be? And I think I even put that in my description. Let me bring that up. I will bring it up. You can't stop me. Yeah, in fact, my description is just call me Joe, quote, on the nose, end quote, Palin. So there you go. Closed the loop on that. So I did do something creative on Thanksgiving Day, but it was just more impromptu, and I didn't feel like doing music. I had been the day before had gotten to fire up one of my songs, one of my older songs, because most of my songs are older, but this is like one of my original ones. It sounds like the early Beatles, right? Now, I'm not patting myself on the back to go, hey, I'm as good as the Beatles, but it was definitely an early Beatles song. It's called You're the One. And again, if you're me, you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, look it up. Because, is it out there? No, I haven't released it yet, but eventually I will, because that's another thing I did recently. Oh, the voice, because of the coffee. Let me drink some water. Again, let you? You can't stop me. That's not how time works. So I did. I released a single on John Lennon's birthday. So I remember it was October 9th of this year, so a little over a month ago. And it was a reboot, a hard reboot of a song called Looking at Him. And when I say I released, it makes it sound so official. Like I'm not on a label. I don't have management or people or anything. But these days, you don't need that. I had a distributor, CD Baby, that I was using for a while, and nothing against CD Baby, but I used them back in 2008, and they're fine. But when I got around to saying, hey, I want to do this again, it had been 14 years, and I thought, hey, let me investigate and see how the climate has changed, or see who else is out there, and do a simple Google, like, what are the best ways to get your stuff on the streaming platforms? And so now I'm using DistroKid. And you really can't go wrong, because, either way, it's $20 a year forever, right? And so the downside is if you stop paying, then your songs aren't out there anymore. But the good news is it's unlimited. So I could release as many singles or albums as I want to during the course of a year and all the years to come. And for $20 a year, they're out there on like 150 different streaming platforms. So I released Looking at Him. And so then that started to get me motivated to think, oh, what else can I do? Different packaging, different ideas for different songs and all that. So Looking at Him, I'm calling it Hard Reboot because I wrote that song a long time ago, but this time I started from scratch, re-recorded it. So reboot as opposed to remix, and I'll get to that. So the hard reboot was I started from scratch and I did it more like hard rock, because the original song released in 2008, the whole album was acoustic. I did acoustic guitar in my voice. I intentionally did that minimalist production approach. The production choice was to do just the... I just realized I'm not using the pop filter. But you know what? That's fine. I'm also just kind of talking further away from the mic to try to reduce the mouth noises. I don't know. It's fine. I'm going to keep it like this just for consistency, I guess. So if you're hearing any pops, I apologize. But I'm also kind of trying to talk, point my mouth hole above the mic so I'm not talking right into the mic. I'm several inches away and I'm talking above the mic. So, okay. But I digress frequently. The song. So I released the song. So here's the thing about that is another project I had going in parallel with something that I had started but haven't released yet is I'm doing remixes in 2008 of the 2008 album, because the 2008 album is called Subject to Change. I wanted to capture basically as if I'm in the coffee house, because in the late 90s and into the early 2000s, I was doing the coffee house scene because coffee houses were a thing. I don't know, maybe they still are, because, subcultures and niche or niche. For years I said niche, now I say niche. I'm going with the flow. But coffee houses might still be a thing, but as far as I know, not so much. They were a thing, and I was doing the thing, and I just wanted to capture that. So even though I didn't exactly capture it, because I didn't get a sound engineer to go into a coffee house and record me live, instead I went into a studio. I rented some studio time and the services of an engineer at Big Rock Studios. And I got him, was his name Andy? Andy Machin? Is that his name? Well, here's what's amazing. When I listen to people talk about stuff like that, because one of my new heroes is Rick Rubin. And this guy has just been like from hip hop to just not hip hop. I mean, the guy, he's a white dude. And I mention that because he was one of the early pioneers of getting hip hop out into the mainstream, because he really loved it as a fan. And when he was going into the hip hop clubs as being one of the only, if not the only white guy in a hip hop club back in New York, he was listening. He became a big fan of hip hop. And then he heard some of the hip hop that would be recorded and come out and get any kind of airplay. And he'd go, wait a second, this isn't what it sounds like in the clubs. I said, that's not it. And so as a fan, that's how he became a producer, is as a fan, he thought, I want to capture that. And I wanted to, so that was his entry into the music industry, into becoming a producer. He wasn't a producer before that. He didn't have any idea how to become a producer. He just decided, hey, I want to serve that function of getting hip hop to sound like I'm hearing it in the clubs. So where was I with that? Was trying to connect it to my 2008. Oh yeah. So here's the deal. When I listen to him or anybody talk, he interviews people and I love it because he's just so cool. He's just this really chill dude, and he gets these really great interviews with people because they're just kicking back. He's got long hair and a beard, and he's just t-shirt and shorts and barefoot and cross-legged. And it's just like, but it's not annoying. Sometimes I think people like that is like, they go, oh, what? Kamasta? I was trying to say namaste, and I don't know, Kama Sutra. People can be annoying. I guess all kinds of people can be annoying, but sometimes I know their heart's in the right place, but when people are going like, they're talking so much like that, and I've made fun of those people so often, I even feel bad doing that now. But here's the point. The dude is chill, okay? So I'm going to stop slamming other people right now. Rick Rubin, chill dude. And he started out with hip hop, but he's done so much stuff. He brought Johnny Cash's career back to life, worked on several albums with him at a point where Johnny Cash didn't even believe in himself. And Rick Rubin said, dude, we can do your best work. Let's not just do an album together. I want you to do your best album. And Johnny Cash is going like, yeah, no, whatever. But he worked with him anyway, reluctantly, because really he didn't have any options. At least this is how Rick Rubin's telling the story, right? And I believe him because I think the guy just sounds like a very genuine guy. But I was getting about the names. I'm thinking that it's Andy Matchin at Big Rock Studios, but I'm not 100% sure. So it amazes me sometimes when I hear Bud Friedman is fresh in my mind because I'm hearing Bud Friedman died recently. So I was listening to his podcast episode with Mark Maron on WTF, on the WTF podcast. And Maron and Bud Friedman is like 80 years old at the time, 10 years ago, and he's rattling off all these names. Oh, yeah, then I worked on this thing with this person, that person, blah, 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 blah. And I have a hard time sometimes just even remember the one person that I worked with that helped me record an album back in 2008. And these people are rattling off the engineer and the producer and the guy who managed somebody. I'm going, either their memories are a lot better than mine, or they're just pulling names out of their ass. And because I don't know, I don't do a fact check, but I guess maybe I just don't have a great memory for names or just a great memory at all. But I guess if I didn't have a great memory at all, I wouldn't remember how to do shit. I wouldn't be able to hold down a job, I guess, because I wouldn't remember how to do shit from day to day. So I guess my memory is good enough. Is it that I'm so selfish that I don't commit names to memory? I don't have a therapist, but there's a good question for my therapist if I had one. And I'm going to go drink some more coffee and fuck up my voice again, okay? Hold on. Wait, I'm asking your permission again. You can't stop me. Remember, that's not how time works. So now I'm also getting conscious. I'm looking at the level and going, oh, I'm moving too close and far away from the mic. But, that's also how life works. That's how conversations work. I mean, sometimes your voice is higher, sometimes it's lower. The goal of this thing is not to be so polished. Well, I'm not practicing to be a voiceover artist right now. I'm just recording my thoughts for whatever reason. So speaking of that, let's circle back around to however long ago when I started to say one of the goals of this thing was just to record whatever's coming out of my face hole. And then I realized as I was thinking that a few hours ago, that if I would have run upstairs and started recording right then, that would be a different 1 hour episode than I'm recording right now, right? Obviously, it kind of goes without saying. I mean, I wouldn't have gone down the same tangents and talked about the same things. Another thing, and I was thinking about that too just before I came in here, going, well, isn't that's what all of life is about? Things are just so arbitrary because, when you're watching sports comes to mind because I watched a bunch of football yesterday. I didn't necessarily care about the games, but the games were on and it was Thanksgiving and Jordan was either sleeping or doing something that he wanted to do. And Autumn was up in Los Angeles and, which by the way, that gave me some sadness for a while, get a little melancholy part of Thanksgiving. Not ridiculing my daughter, by the way, or anything for not wanting to be with her family because she does. She will. She will visit sometime in December. We made the decision that she was going to swoop by because she had some Thanksgiving plans, and then she also had a gig up in LA that she told a friend of hers that she'd work on something with them over the weekend on a short film. And we both thought actually, well, maybe instead of swooping for part of a day, she said, well, and if I come later, maybe if I just come sometime in December, I'll be able to spend more time. And we both thought, yeah, we were kind of sad that she wouldn't be coming for Thanksgiving, but also happy to have the longer visit to look forward to, right? And Jordan agreed, so that's fine. So I am all kinds of cool with that. I'm just flexible as fuck. And I was trying to think of some. I'm flexible as a gymnast or some, whatever. I'm fine with it. I am fine. And yesterday I was also fine with it too. It just still made me sad. So my emotions are real, right? I was at some point thinking, oh, I don't want to feel sad. But it's if I feel sad, I feel sad. I bathed in that for a while and it drifted away. It kind of came and went. And it's fine. So where was I? I was nowhere and everywhere. Oh yeah, just the idea that if I'd started recording this earlier today, it would be a different product than when I did start recording it, which was like, whatever, half hour ago or so. Oh, really? Have I been talking for a half hour already? See where the time goes? That's one thing I wasn't worried about. I wasn't worried about having nothing to say. I was just thinking, oh my God, but maybe I'll lose all these thoughts that I'm having. Because that was another thought I had a few hours ago was I had a bunch of thoughts swirling around in my head and thinking, oh, I could talk about this, I could talk about that. But then I thought, no, I fought that urge. I thought, no, don't think about that. Don't think about what you're going to talk about. Just whatever happens to come out of your mouth, just do that. Just talk, right? So that's what I'm doing. But then the broader thing that I thought about was that's what life is about too. You watch sports as like whatever is unfolding in front of you, and then you see the headlines the next day. If you haven't watched the game, you see the headlines the next day, and the proverbial game of inches, right? One team wins on a last second field goal, or ooh, the guy missed the catch and they lost the game. It's like all of that shit that just hinges on a moment when it's happening. But then later on, you look at it, you look back on it as then it becomes, those are the photos online. Those are the Instagram posts. Those are all of that. All the media comes out. It's like, it's capturing what happened. But before it happened, like it could have gone the other way too. Right? And what determines that? What determines, it's just so arbitrary. It's like, because maybe one of the players, because of what he had for breakfast, or because of a fight he had with his wife, or because of maybe they had good sex the night before, whatever combination of things that all the different people are going through, and all the fans and all the circumstances and all that, it all affects it. But it also depends, like if those teams had played the day before, the result would have been different. If the kickoff starts 5 minutes earlier or later, it could affect things because that's just the way it is, right? So when I was starting to concern myself about, oh no, if I don't go up and start recording right now, I'm going to lose something. Or it's like, what? Yeah, maybe. So obviously this podcast is not the same now as it would have been 3 hours ago. It's also not the same now as it would have been 6 months ago. Or if I was racing to finish it before the end of the year because of my arbitrary annual podcast thing that I've been doing. It's always going to be different, and it's always changing. It's also changing as I speak because I don't know what I'm going to talk about next. Here's what I'm going to talk about next. I'm going to talk about Eckhart Tolle. Have I mentioned him on these podcasts? I don't remember if I have. Probably. He's one of the, I say for lack of a better term, because I know red flags go up for people and for myself, for like spiritual leader or spiritual teacher, guru, whatever it is, philosopher. But Eckhart Tolle, I like this guy. I like his ideas, and he doesn't strike me as one of those scammy kind of guys. I think his heart's in the right place. And I've already forgotten what I was going to say about him. Oh, I remember. On more than one occasion, he would sit there in front of his audience at the beginning, these YouTube videos that I listen to sometimes before I'm going to sleep. He says, you might notice that I start out and I'm, just took a drink of water. Okay. I could edit all of this out, but I'm not going to. Here's the point. I want it to be like what he says he's doing. And I believe him. He says, sometimes people will have an agenda or whatever that they want to say, and that's fine. Or bullet points, or they know what they're going to talk about. But he said that when he gets out there, he doesn't know what he's going to talk about. And, I've heard other people in that same kind of industry say the same thing. Sometimes that's the deal. They might have a starting point or maybe not. They just get out there, stand out, look around the crowd, and then just start talking like I did here. Right? So that's what I decided to do. No bullet points. And also during this whole thing, I did open the notepad inside of the Logic Pro software, but I haven't written anything down. If I do decide sometime in the next 25 minutes or so before my hour is up, am I a psychiatrist? Do I have to stop at the end of an hour? If I decide to open it up and take some notes, I will. But at this point, probably not. Have conversations with Autumn all the time. We can go weeks or months, usually not months, but however long. We can go a while without talking, and then we'll talk, and the next thing you know, we go, oh, crap, we've been talking for an hour, hour and a half. And it's just so cool. It's like that there's no awkward silences or anything like that. It's just, we're just talking. That's what I'm doing now. I have no problem doing that. So there's that. So part of it, man, emulating Eckhart Tolle in that way. So what else have I been doing? Oh, music. Yeah. So there we go. So that's a thing. I have no desire to perform live right now. And I don't know if I will again. I say part of that is pandemic. Yeah, it's a huge part of it because I was performing live right up until it was actually declared a pandemic. And even for the months. Oh. Had a screensaver go on for some reason. Okay. So I didn't even know I had that setting. Distracted. But yeah, so I mean, I obviously I had the desire to perform right up until the pandemic was declared a pandemic. And even, I did keep performing even when the pandemic was spreading around the globe, but we here in America weren't really acknowledging it yet. And the World Health Organization had not declared it a pandemic, but going to the clubs, it was starting to be like social distancing had become a phrase. And they were starting to, when we still thought that maybe the virus was spreading by contact, there was, like sanitizing dispensers around the clubs and stuff like that. So it was but anyway, point is, but I was still going out to the clubs and I was performing. What's my point? During the pandemic and now, because it's still the pandemic, despite what some people say, I know, people will argue whether it's a pandemic or an endemic. I don't care. There's 300 or 400 or 500 people a day just in this country alone dying every day that were not dying a couple years ago. It's a new cause is my point. It's still one of the leading causes of death. So yeah, whether you call it a pandemic or an endemic, we're still in it. Okay. So that's where I'm at, is I'm still being cautious. I'm not going to perform anywhere. And I've lost the desire, so it's fine. I don't really feel like I'm missing anything. So I'm channeling my energies elsewhere. And it's not that I wasn't recording music before, but that's more of my focus now as a creative output. It's getting more into producing songs. And especially like I started saying earlier, when I released that single last month on October 9th, John Lennon's birthday, I started getting these ideas of what albums, it started inspiring me to like what albums, plural, I could produce, because I had started down the path of remixing the 2008 album, right? So here's the difference between the remix and the reboot, as I started to talk about probably half hour ago. The reboot that I did, the hard reboot, was instead of acoustic plus voice like I did in 2008, I don't know why I feel this way. Not doing a remix. I started from scratch and I did more of like a hard, heavy metal, harder reboot with the guitar. And my voice was softer. I don't know why I feel this way. Because the song in the 2008 acoustic version was, acoustic guitar and me screaming, and I flipped it. My production choice was, okay, for this hard reboot, I'm going to flip it where my voice is a little more subdued and the guitar is heavy metal, right? So that was a production choice. So I did that, and that was my first single that I had released in 2022 after not having released anything in 14 years. So then that gave me the idea of, okay, I could also do more more of that, or I could get back to the remixes because I hadn't released them yet. But here's the album I'm working on now. It's a remix of Subject to Change. It's a remix. So I had already done this for a couple of songs where I go back and I import the audio from the song that's got my voice and the acoustic guitar. I import that into Logic Pro and then layer some stuff on top of it. Add some drums, whatever else I feel like doing. Some drums, probably some bass, just the typical stuff like that, right? Maybe another guitar, maybe electric guitar instead of acoustic guitar, whatever I feel like doing for the mood of that song. So that's the remix. So one of the albums I'm working on now is the follow-up to the 2008 Subject to Change acoustic thing. And it's going to be called Without Notice. Subject to Change Without Notice, right? I won't take you through the gyrations of how I landed on that, but I give credit to my son Jordan for pointing me in that direction, because when I gave him some of the titles that I had that I was thinking of, or even just calling it Subject to Change Remix, or I can't remember. There were a few other ideas, but he said, how about something that's just more kind of like a play on words with subject to change? And so I kind of thought about that for a couple of days, and it's the Subject to Change Without Notice came to mind. I went, oh, so it's without notice. And what I like is the at least double meaning, because without notice is because of the phrase subject to change without notice. And also, boy, I know that's annoying. I know that's annoying that I keep having my voice going out like that, but you know what? At least I'm doing something about it. There's sometimes when I listen to podcasts or recordings of people's, like I already mentioned, some of those philosophical people that I listen to, or different YouTube videos, and I'll go, oh my God, their voice is just cracking or it's too dry, and they're not doing anything about it. And I can't even listen. So I do apologize for my voice kind of coming and going, or maybe that's already made people stop listening. So I keep interrupting myself, and that's fine. I'm talking about subject to change without notice, the at least double meaning. The meaning that I like the most about without notice is that nobody's going to notice, because I'm just an obscure guy. And sure, I'm releasing it to 150 digital platforms, but who's going to stumble upon it? Not very often. I get thrilled, though, because here's the thing about expectations. Back in 2008, when I released Subject to Change, and I had these expectations about thousands of people listening to and buying my songs, because I had been indoctrinated into this idea of the long tail. And the premise is that, so there's lots of people out there putting stuff out, and it's going to be a relative small percentage of people who get most of the attention. But the long tail, as you look at that curve going off to the right, and people get fewer and fewer people listening to them. But even at the very end of that very long tail of people who get not that much attention, that's still going to be thousands of people, right? So you can still end up getting thousands of followers just by even just putting something out there. So I bought that. I thought, okay, cool. I'm going to get thousands of people just because the sheer number of people out there on the internet, and they're going to buy my stuff and listen to my stuff. And that didn't happen. But I'm on the order of hundreds over the course of 14 years. I look at the statistics, and I don't have them memorized, but it's on the order of several hundred people that have, intentionally or unintentionally heard my music. It's not that much, right? But here's the thing about expectations. I was disappointed when I wasn't getting thousands of record sales. When I was getting thousands of sales and listens back in 2008. Disappointed as fuck, right? Oh, there's my explicit tag. Is that the first time I used a foul language? A foul language? A foul word? I think so. So fuck. Gotta earn that explicit tag, because I just keep it on by default. I just figured, what the hell, that way I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about censoring myself if I keep the explicit tag on in the metadata. So expectations, I was explicit in expectations. So there's a segue. I was disappointed because I thought I was going to get thousands of sales, thousands of listens, and it didn't happen. Now, if I look at a monthly report that comes in an email from Apple, and it says that one person Shazammed one of my songs, oh my God, I'm thrilled. One person. And if you don't know what Shazam is or was, if you're in the future and Shazam doesn't exist anymore, that means that somebody was listening out in public somewhere, out in the wild, in an elevator or a bar or God knows where they were, and they heard my song and they bothered to take out their phone, open up Shazam, press the button, and hold it up to see who was singing that song, because that's how Shazam works. Shazam will tell you when you're listening to something who the artist is. It'll tell you. So that means I love that. That's like my favorite thing, because if I get something that says, my next favorite thing is if anybody listens at all, right? I see that, on Spotify it got streamed, because, this, even though I'm obscure, I know the way that works is sometimes your song will randomly end up on a playlist, or somebody will just like turn on a random, like a radio station, the streaming equivalent of a radio station, and a song, songs like mine will just be popped into the mix, and that's fine. That's fun to know that anybody might just be hearing my song somewhere. So that's cool too. And even then, the expectations are so low that I'm going, if I get like one or two of those in a month, I'm going, oh, cool, somebody listened to my song. But the Shazams are my favorite. The main thing is about expectations, though, right? I'm not the first one to realize that setting expectations low is the key to success. But that's where I'm at now. Like with doing the music, it's not only just about expectations too. It's about keeping my ego in check, because even though I've got ideas for like the one album I told you about, Without Notice, so that's going to be a remix of the songs that I recorded in 2008. So I'm not starting from scratch. I've got the vocal and the acoustic guitar, and I'm going to layer stuff on top of that, and go with whatever tone or feel that I'm doing for the remix. And I've already got a couple of those in the can. But I think that'll probably be the first album that I release. It's probably sometime this year or next year. But the other one in parallel is a couple of my older songs. And when I say older, most of my songs are older because I don't write that much anymore. But that might change. But the ones that actually sound like early Beatles songs, and I don't know what I'm going to call that, but that might just be an EP. But I guess the other one's an EP too, right? 7 songs. It's kind of arbitrary. When does an EP become an LP? So let's just stick to the word album. But the point is, another idea I have, because I've also got a couple of my songs, You're the One and Can You Be the One, I think. They don't all end in one, although maybe I could just have all songs that end with the word one. But seriously, folks, that album I think will just be more like early Beatles sounding stuff. It'll be more like the 60s. It also becomes an exercise too, because one of the things that I've been working on, even though I'm also working on using more modern production techniques or more modern production instruments like 808 basses. The 808 is like a very low end of the bass of the frequency spectrum. And it's also got a very specific sound to it, just very, I was going to try to impersonate it. Anyway, 808 bass. There's a lot of modern techniques that I'm just kind of not going to do that for this other album. It's going to be more like, what if I was recording in the 60s or in the 50s? That's the challenge. Kind of sparse, not as sparse as my 2008 album, but kind of sparse, right? In that just typical, maybe, a couple of guitars, voice, bass, maybe some harmonies, right? In fact, not just maybe. There's one that I'm working on now, You're the One. That was what I was working on a few days ago, and I just have to be in the right mood to work on this, is Autumn listened to it, and she said, oh, yeah, I like it, but, how about if you add some oohs and ahs, right? And it's kind of funny she would say that, because I thought about it, and I didn't do it initially. But, like just having some little backing vocals, just ooh, that kind of thing. So when I finally got around to doing that, I say finally, because she suggested that back in August or September when I shared it with her. And thank God for Autumn, because she is my audience. That's like, since I'm not performing out in the wild anymore, and I gave up on social media at the start of the pandemic because I don't want to hear people. I just don't want to hear people. And I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but the main thing I will just say is, as I skim the surface of the rabbit hole, is that I just got tired. Just got tired of hearing people politicize something like politicize a pandemic. I guess it shouldn't have been surprising, but when it happened, it was just like during different election cycles, and I tuned out for a while, or during an entire presidency of a person who shall remain nameless. Oh, he's got a name, and it's plastered over buildings, over gaudy buildings. But yeah, I'm not going to say his name, but you know who I'm talking about. I just tuned out, right? So I've tuned in and out at various degrees, and now even during the vacation, I've tuned out again. I was already mostly tuned out, but then I tuned out. Okay. So where was I? I was talking about the songs and... Okay, doesn't matter. I was going to try to get back to where I was, but if you get frustrated because I start things and don't finish them, oh well, I guess you don't know me. Or you do know me, and that's why you're annoyed. So, yeah, I was talking about music in general and performing and all that. So that's my main thing now. My main thing. I come up in the studio here because that's where I'm sitting now. I'm sitting in the home studio and recording this in my underwear. In fact, when I was first, just before I had to take a break because I had to go deflem, I was wearing a t-shirt and some long baggy track pants. And then I came back in. I thought, you know what? Taking that all off, just going to do my usual work attire, because that's usually when I'm working for my day job. I'm just in my boxers. So that's what I'm doing now, because that's what I do. I'm not taking a picture of it, though. I did take a picture just of my knees and this and the recording setup here. So for whatever context, I don't know if I'm going to post that anywhere or if that's just for my own historical, personal family album. And I realize as I'm talking here too, I mentioned that before, the level keeps coming and going. But I also realize I'm up at 52 minutes. So I don't know if I need to go for a closer. There doesn't have to be a closer. And also, as far as an opener goes, I don't know if I'm going to add any music. I probably will, because it's always nice to at least have a little intro music. And when I did this the last couple of years, last year or the year before, or the year before, was it last year? God, I lose track of time. Yeah, I don't remember. I did one where it was a compilation of a bunch of stuff. It was a bunch of clips. I guess that was... No, I guess that would have been 2020, not 2021, because 2020 is when I was performing. And so I had some clips from performing and I did a compilation. Yeah, I don't remember. I feel like I'm winding down. Doesn't it feel like I'm winding down? I want to hit the hour, though. It's so arbitrary, but I do. And if I've gone this far, why not, right? Yeah, so how about that? I could close with a little guided meditation. I do that. I don't produce guided meditation, but I have been meditating regularly for several years now. I don't remember exactly when I started, but I use the Calm app. This podcast is not sponsored by the Calm app, but my attitude is. It's hard to measure, difficult, if not impossible to measure, especially since I didn't record any baseline biometric data when I started recording. And that would only be one measurement because, yeah, sure, things like blood pressure or alpha waves or whatever other kind of brain waves would be some measure of, or gamma, I don't know. There would be ways to measure brain waves and other kinds of biometric stuff to get an idea of if a person is calm or not, but that doesn't get the whole picture. Because it's also like what kind of brain activity on a different level What kind of brain activity do you have on a different level? What kind of thoughts do you have throughout the day? Right? Are you focusing on negative stuff? Are you doing negative spirals? Are you doing positive things? Is your mind just wandering, which is fine? So I'm not making value judgments here. I'm just saying that, that's like, you don't measure that. You can't hook yourself up to a bunch of electrodes and measure that. Then you have to ask people questions, which is fine. But again, I don't have a baseline. But my point is, even without having a baseline or some official way to measure if the meditating has been helping me, I'm fairly confident it has. I remember many times, flying off the handle, having a bad temper, all that. And that doesn't happen very often anymore. See, I can't say never because I'm still a human. Occasionally I'll flash, but even when I do, it's a, hear that? I'll feel it. Luckily, when I'm lucky, I'll catch it within a matter of seconds and bring myself down in a positive way, bring myself down from the anger, which is then bringing myself up because I'm positive again, or even neutral. I'll settle for neutral. I'm looking at the trees again. That's where I started, or at least close to the beginning of it. But no, I'm not going to lie. There's that screensaver again. I don't know. Yeah, I guess I just never noticed because mainly I guess I'm clicking on stuff. But now I see it's 56 minutes, 32 seconds. I am definitely thinking about where to end. Maybe I don't need to go to the entire hour. I'm worried that, what if I don't do the hour? It's such low stakes. All of this is low stakes. This is just, here's something that I just remembered, is that when I started talking earlier about looking at my journal about voiceover, and it was 2001. It's embarrassing because I was in 2001. I'm going, I really want to work on voiceover. How can I work on voiceover? And and I've auditioned for some things, and I've done a couple things that were in the realm of voiceover, but not really. It hasn't become a big deal. I haven't done as many voiceover gigs as I've done like live action with my face on camera acting gigs. And, fine. It's fine, but it is kind of embarrassing when I look back and go, it's something I'd really like to do. And then 21 years later, and I'm still like, okay, I've got a voiceover demo and I've had one for years, and I improved on it this year and I sent it to my agent, but I got crickets. And I haven't followed up because, in all honesty, look, I know where I'm at. I'm not working very hard. I'm not focusing on that. I haven't told you. It's like I'm focusing on music, and even then, I'm not really pursuing it. I got a book from my daughter about the music business. Yeah, it's called "All You Need to Know About the Music Business" by Donald S. Passman, and this is a book. Then when I looked in the cover, it's like, it's been released in many editions over the years, and apparently it's some really nice, comprehensive, definitive book on the music business, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with delving into it and doing something, or heaven forbid, monetizing. No, I shouldn't say heaven forbid. I wouldn't mind if I made a few bucks here and there, but that's not my focus. I don't want to have that happen to me again because I know my tendencies. I know that if I start thinking too much about things like marketing or monetizing or any other M word that's escaping me right now, it's like, it's just for me, then that becomes the thing. And I don't want that to be the thing. I want it to be about music. There's a good M word, music. So that's what it's about. And if it's not music, it's videos or anything, whatever it is, whatever the creative outlet is, or voiceover. Yeah, fine. But I don't want to be consumed by the monetary part or the getting attention part, the egoic parts. There's a Eckhart Tolleism. He, I don't think created the word, but when he talks about, the egoic self, and the ego isn't totally bad. It's all, it's a matter of degrees. It is. Ego's fine. It's okay to have an ego, but don't let it take over. This is a little message from me to me. I just don't want my ego to take over, and I don't want to be consumed and put the cart before the horse or whatever other more modern allegory we could use. I don't want to be consumed by that, so I'm not. I'm just doing things because I want to do it, because I want to be creative. And if I have an audience of one, if Autumn is my audience, that's fine. But I'm not going to lie too. NGL, not going to lie. I do know that it's fun to have people hear my stuff. It's fun as an artist, any kind of creative person, to have people see your stuff and maybe potentially be influenced by the stuff. But oh my God, I don't have any aspirations to be an influencer. And I just hit an hour. I don't have any aspirations to be an influencer. The word is annoying enough, but also it's one of those things where if somebody is doing something where they, as a byproduct, are influencing people, okay, fine, but just to be labeled an influencer, or worse yet, to be self-proclaimed as an influencer, oh my God. So that's not what I'm going for. I like being creative. I like doing stuff. And even this silly little habit, it's hard to call something a habit that I only do once a year, but this silly little thing that I'm doing now where I record a podcast episode once a year is like, why am I doing this? I don't know. And it doesn't matter. I do it because I want to. And that's, I guess, there would be a good place to close, right? I'm doing things because I want to. I'm not forcing myself. I wanted to record this episode today, so I'm doing it. And later today, if I feel like it, I'll do some music. Or not. Or I'll play some video games. That's not exactly creative, but I don't care. I do care about creating stuff, though. When I want to create stuff, I'll create stuff. And I'll be releasing some singles and some albums in the coming years. And I'm not even going to... The phrase that just popped in my head is, and then we'll see where that takes me. But you know what? I don't care where it takes me. It's the journey, not the destination. Hey, there's your closer. Close with the cliche. Joe. This has been Joe on the Nose Palin.
Just when I have all the answers, all the questions change. One day the world looks so normal, next it looks so strange. Looking over the ocean on a sunny day.